when you give something, and this can be your time, it can be your riches, it can be any number of things, but you take something that belongs to you and you give it to somebody who is in more need than you are, you get the same dopamine hit, but it lasts longer because it's emotionally satisfying. And that is the reason why people who are charitable tend to be much, much happier people. And the people who are, and I lost my train of thought a little bit on that. People who are charitable tend to be wealthier people, not because they were wealthy in the first place and that's why they could afford to give it away, but because they're not spending money at the level that the person who is not charitable does.
So at the end of the day, I mean, regardless of how much money you have, you can still be just as guilty of making money an idol in the end all be all, and spending too much time and too much of your focus on money and what it can or can't do for you. Thank you once again for joining us at the Retirement Planning Happy Hour. Eric Douglas, Chris Vaughn, Family Wealth Planning Partners, where we are here to talk everything about finance, investments, and most specifically retirement planning, of course, and all the things that kind of correlate with that. Have an interesting topic today.
Yep.
Interesting topic. We talk a lot about the purpose of money. So that by no means is that going to be kind of new for
will not.
The topic of the podcast. We talk about that ad nauseum because it's something that we truly believe in. But you had an interesting idea to bring or come at that topic from a different angle today,
right?
And to kind of apply biblical principles.
There you go.
To the idea of the purpose of money and attitudes about money, not only necessarily in the Bible, but how they correlate to today as well.
Right.
And some of the things that we see, some of the attitudes that we see a lot of our clients have and a lot of prospects have about money in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was a really interesting idea, a really interesting topic for today. So that's something that we'll tackle for our second podcast in the new office space,
right,
where we still do not have a sign. And at some point, this will be a little more full.
We still don't have our glasses. We're using the old coffee mugs right now for our water.
So we're going to enjoy our old logo for just the remaining time that we can still use it.
But we did get the correct table in here this time.
But we do have the
that
right
was
table.
Delivered.
And most importantly, we have a very good bourbon.
Right.
Or at least what I will assume to be a very good bourbon, because I've not had this one yet.
All right. So let's start with the bourbon then. This is 1792, which is a Barton product. Specifically, it is what they call sweet wheat.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've had this many times. This is among the lower proof bourbons. This is one of my favorites that I've ever had. It's always good. You've had 1792 many times. I think that we've actually done a 1792 full proof on this podcast, but we've never done the sweet wheat. So this is a wheated bourbon, is 91.2 proof, I believe we said what it said on the bottle. This was a unicorn a few years ago. You just couldn't find it anywhere.
Well, that's because I've never had this, and
yeah.
I knew that this was always one of those things where the liquor stores would put it out, and it was gone.
It was gone instantly, or it was held in the back for the customers that spend a lot of money with them, that kind of stuff. You are starting to see it out more and more often. It is still typically a little overpriced. I think the liquor stores are learning you can't put it up for the kind of prices that you could a couple years ago. People aren't going to spend that kind of money. I bought this at retail. I think retail on this is $50 or something like that. So if you can find it at the right price, this is a really, really good price point for a good bourbon. I have seen this for over $100. It ain't $100 good, right? Mm-hmm. But if you can find this at retail or close to it, or certainly if somebody has some and they offer it to you, this one is a fantastic, soft on the palate wheater bourbon. That's
a great intro.
We'll do that as the intro.
I'll save my thoughts towards the end.
Okay.
You'll probably figure them out before we get there. But yeah,
we need to play poker sometime because your poker face is even worse than mine. At least if there's bourbon involved, right?
I used to be a pretty good poker player.
Okay,
once upon a time.
I'm not. I admit that. I cannot hide my tells.
I'm not an emotional guy, so I was pretty good at poker back in the day.
All right.
So anyway, with that being said, this was kind of your idea,
yeah.
So I'll let you spearhead this topic. But the purpose of money kind of layered with biblical principles.
All right. So this popped into my head because I've actually had a conversation with people a couple of times over the last few weeks. And it actually came up as this was a sermon topic at my church last week. So it kind of got the ball rolling a little bit. What we like to say at our firm is that the purpose of money is to buy the things that bring you joy, right?
Or maybe not even buy, but to
buy is the wrong word. To give you the ability to do the things, buy the things, whatever it is that brings you joy. And we've talked about this, that, what brings me joy and what brings you joy are not necessarily the same thing. They might be related. We've talked about how we personally spend money. I spend money on things that I enjoy. You don't spend money that way. We've even teased each other about it from time to time.
I spend money on things my wife enjoys.
I think those of us that are happily married all spend money on things that our wives enjoy.
Things my kids enjoy. Every now and then something I like will crawl in there.
But I think too many investment advisors spend too much time, maybe exclusively, trying to make the money that their clients have bigger. That's their only real job. And we talked about a couple of symposiums that we've been to here recently that, all the guys that we're sitting with, nice enough advisors, good guys, they're focused exclusively on how do I make my clients' money bigger. We've had comments on these videos where people have said, well, that's not the right thing to do because you should be making and something to the extent of making the money bigger. And if that's what you think, then I think you're missing the point.
Well, that's when money starts to become an idol.
Right. Yeah. And that's where it comes back to, a couple of Bible verses hit me. The biggest one that I hear all the time, and by the way, I may be misquoting this, please, if I'm wrong. In the Bible, the only thing mentioned more than money is love. Mm-hmm. Right? And that one's up there. Money is mentioned hundreds of times because it's an important subject.
Very much.
I don't have the stats to prove this, but I'd be willing to bet that divorce, probably the biggest cause of divorce, is money issues. Right? It really is a problem.
Or money generates other issues. Or lack of money generates other issues.
I remember years ago, the Powerball had gotten up to some absurd amount of money. $1 billion or whatever. And my wife said, I don't want to win. Excuse me? What do you mean you don't want to win that? And she said, because money just creates problems. And I thought about it for a second. I said, no, I disagree. Money doesn't create problems. Money amplifies problems. Yeah. It highlights. Yeah, that's a good word. It's kind of like when people say speed causes accidents. No. Suddenly becoming stationary causes accidents. The speed itself just amplifies everything. So, I said, I don't think that it would be a problem to win that much money if you're already well grounded, right? So that brings up the first Bible verse that I want to go to. This comes from 1 Timothy 6:10, and this is the one that people misquote all the time. They say, money is the root of all evil.
Or they use that to justify.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can't be rich. I can't grow my money because money is the root of all evil. That is not what the Bible says. Mm-hmm. It says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So it's not exclusive. There's some other things out there that are problematic, obviously. But it's the love of money. So money is a tool. We say that one all the time. I love my hammer. Mm-hmm. I have a very special framing hammer that I bought when I was doing Habitat for Humanity a lot. But I'm not in love with my hammer. If I need to use a different tool, it doesn't bother me. I think that's the way money works. Money is a tool to accomplish whatever the task is, whatever the thing is that brings you joy. It's just simply a tool. It's when money becomes the goal. I mean, how many times have we heard, well, I want to make my money bigger? Yeah, but what's the goal, you ask?
For what purpose?
For what purpose? What are you trying to buy? What are you trying to do? Well, I just want to make my money bigger. Are you ever going to get to that goal? Are you ever going to be successful if the only goal is just to make the number bigger, right? So I think that's where you get into the concern of the love of money, right? And how it can get you in trouble. I had a conversation, this one just popped into my head when I was thinking about this earlier. I had to get a root canal. Gosh, this has been 10 years ago. And the dentist said, this one's beyond my expertise. I'm going to send you to an endodontist. So the first thing in my mind is, this is going to cost me a lot of money, and it's going to hurt, right? So anyway, I went to an endodontist here in Louisville. To my knowledge, he's still there. And I walked into this office, and it's, let's just say the office is dated, right? And when I say
dated 10 years ago.
Yeah, this was 10 years ago.
And it was dated 10 years ago.
And I drive past where this office is all the time. The sign hasn't changed. There's nothing fancy about this at all. It's in a little hole-in-the-wall strip center. The walls are wood paneling, very 1970s. The decor they have not invested any money into the office itself. The guy did good work. I don't have any problem with that. But we got to talking based on some things that I saw hanging up, and he asked me, he said, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a financial planner. Oh, so what's your attitude towards money? And, I used the reference. I don't know why it came up. I just remember doing it. I said, well, there is a great parable in the Bible that Jesus talked about, and it's called the parable of the talents or something like that. And if you don't know this one, I'm going to tell it very quickly here in a second. He said, that's the one financial advisors always use, and I just think they're wrong. What? Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you don't know the one we're talking about, this is Matthew 25, 14 through 30 is where it comes from. And it's Jesus telling a story about a wealthy man goes on a journey, and he's got 3 servants, and he leaves some, and it depends on the translation, talents, which has a double meaning to it because talent was a measurement of money in the time. He takes one servant, and he gives him 5 talents or bags of gold. Another servant, he gives him 2, and another servant, he gives him 1, right? Well, the first 2 guys, they go out and they start trying to make the money bigger. The third one buries the bag of gold or the talent in the yard or whatever. The master comes back, and he goes to the first one, and he says, what'd you do with the talents, the bags of gold I gave you? And he said, Master, I've taken the 5 that you gave me, and I've doubled it. And he gave him 10. And he said, well done, good and faithful servant. That's where that phrase comes from, right? So then he goes to the second one, who he gave 2, right? He said, well, I've invested it. Now I've got 4. And he gives him back to him. Well done, good and faithful servant, right? And this is exactly where the endodontist is going. Yeah, I know where you're going with this. The third one, he said, I was afraid. I did not want you to lose, so I buried the money. And the master takes the money away from him, and he says, you wicked, evil servant. And he takes that money and he gives it to the one who now had come up with 10. And then, if you read the rest of the story, he casts him out. He throws him out of his household, right? He basically fires him is what he's doing. And the concept here is that some people are given more than others. It even says in that scripture, it's given according to their ability. Well, some people have more talents than others. There's a lot of people that have talents that I would love to have. I wish I could play basketball. I don't have that skill set. I heard, Charles Barkley doing an interview. They said, what would you be doing if you were 5'10"? He said, I'd be saying, welcome to McDonald's, right? All of us have different talents, different gifts. The question is, what do you do with them? And that's the way that I take that story. So the endodontist said, you're just trying to make more money, and money is the root of all evil, or something along those lines is what he said. And it's like, I think you're missing the point. And what he referenced was another one. This is the third scripture that I'm going to bring in today, was Matthew 19, 16 through 24, which is the story of the rich young ruler. And this is the story that is used by people who like to say money is bad, okay? So in this particular story, this was an event, not a story that was told. A wealthy man came to Jesus and he said, what do I need to do to get into heaven? And Jesus gives him a list of things, right? Don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't murder. He basically quotes multiple commandments. And he says, Master, I've done all that, right? And you can just taste the arrogance when you read it. He says, what else do I have to do? And he says, all right, give away all your possessions and follow me. And the guy turns dejected and he walks away, and we never hear from him again. And then Jesus says to his disciples, it is harder for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. And that's the argument that people make where money is bad, right? Because if you're rich, you're not going to heaven because camels don't pass through, the eye of a needle. And I think that's taken so out of context because it goes back to that first one. What do you love, right? If you love money, if your goal is for that number to just get bigger for whatever purpose, right? But that's what you want is for the number to get bigger. That's the person who you're not gonna hit the finish line, right? It's never gonna be enough, and that's where that's one of those stories that strikes me. I know a lot of people that are very wealthy. I can think of several right off the top of my head that are worth, multiple millions.
And we work with
who are
them.
very, very devout Christian people. But they're not in love with their money. The money is a tool. It's something they inherited, or it's something that they've worked hard for. They've invested well, any number of different things.
And in most cases, I'll add, you would have no idea.
That's
that
true.
they had that money.
Absolutely, you wouldn't know
because they don't carry themselves in a traditional, in the traditional way that you see a rich,
They don't show it
that you
off.
see a rich guy
Yeah.
on movies.
They don't show it off. And that's kind of the background for what I wanted to talk about today with the purpose of money. So I'll kind of let you make some comments from there.
Well, so you were referring to, obviously the individual who made an idol out of money. And what he needed to do to get into heaven, it wasn't the fact that everybody with money had to get rid of their money in order to get into heaven.
Bingo.
That individual.
It was that guy. Yeah.
That guy. That's what he had to do. Because to him, he had made money an idol. On the flip side, going back to the guy that went and buried all of his money in the yard because he was afraid to lose the money. Every bit as the rich guy made money an idol, so did the guy who was afraid to lose it.
Absolutely. He was kicked out of the house.
Yes.
Right?
Just because you might not have a lot of money, the way you treat money you can still treat money as an idol. Because if you are deathly afraid of money and what it can possibly do for your future, and you're also afraid to lose it, you're every bit as guilty as the rich guy who's afraid to lose it as well. Okay? Because you have made that money an idol. You are afraid to lose it. It's like the Lord of the Rings movies, okay?
Great analogy. I like it.
Yeah, I'll get my inner dork on here. But I absolutely love those movies. My wife still to this day refuses to watch them with me anymore. Fun fact, by the way, our first date was the second Lord of the Rings movie.
Kidding.
Oh,
no
yeah.
kidding.
She'll still give me crap about it.
You know that the first one is being re-released in the theaters next month or something like that. I can't wait to go see it again.
We'll talk about that.
All right.
I did not know that.
That's another podcast.
Somehow I took her to see Lord of the Rings on our first date, and we're still married. I don't know how that happened, but regardless, when you don't have it and you're afraid of it, and what little you have, it's like Gollum in the Lord of the Rings. It's the precious. You're afraid to lose it, and because you're afraid to lose it, you do everything to keep it.
Right.
And it changes your personality. It changes your mindset, and we've seen a lot of that too on the other side. So there is a happy medium in between those two extremes, but unfortunately, we see so many people on both of those extremes. Go to both of those extremes in regards to their thoughts about money. And it's interesting, too, how easy it is for people that might not have as much of it to use that Bible verse, right? Money is the root of all evil. And it's almost like a defense mechanism against the people that have it.
Yep.
And so you don't want to necessarily fault people that have it. Just because you have money doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Yeah.
And we can riddle you with stories about wonderful people that have money. Wonderful people without money as well, right? Yep. It's just inherent. It's inherently important to understand your attitude about money. It can say a lot about your personality.
I think when you look at people that are genuinely happy people, I don't mean they're walking around with a smile on their face going rah rah. I mean people who in their heart are genuinely happy. Money is never at the top of their priorities. Once again, it comes back. It's just a tool. They're using it to help create the environment that brings them happiness, right? Regardless of what they want to do with it. But money is never the priority. The people, to your point, on those extremes, the people who have it and they're trying desperately to make as much more of it as they can, typically not very happy people, right? I don't want to be around them. They're not fun. But on the other extreme, the people that don't have very much and they guard it, like Gollum in the movie. It's my precious, and they are so defensive about it. They're also not very happy people.
Happy
they're
either,
miserable. Somewhere in the middle is where you really need to be.
So at the end of the day, I mean, regardless of how much money you have, you can still be just as guilty of making money an idol in the end all be all, and spending too much time and too much of your focus on money and what it can or can't do for you. Because the other attitude I see a lot with people that don't think that they have a money, and it's interesting too, because especially the people that don't, or the people that are especially, maybe they don't think that they have a lot of money. They probably have more than they do.
Oh my gosh.
But they've made it an idol, and they so secretly guard it, right? And they're so careful to not lose any of it. Most of the time, those people probably have more than enough. And they could, and it's interesting because those people that don't think that they have enough, if they weren't so hesitant to do anything with that money, if they weren't so guarded about that money, they probably could have a lot more of it. Because this is where it gets to people's attitudes about money, and most people don't understand how to money. Most people don't understand.
Ooh, good phrase. I like that.
They don't understand how to money. They don't understand what it can do for you and how to use it. Yeah. And most people get this idea that money just should sit in a bank and do nothing. Cash is king. And, as long as I have cash, it's not going to go anywhere. I can't lose it.
We've had that discussion before.
And you can't make anything on it either, right? Money rewards those who take risks.
Yes, it does.
And we can, of course, riddle you with stories about that. But the people that take risks with their money are obviously the ones that understand that money is a tool. Money is a tool to accomplish what you want to do, right?
Yep.
To accomplish your dreams. In our case, and I'll use myself as an example. I left a job. I was making pretty good money. I was been there for years, got to travel the country, saw all kinds of cool places, did all kinds of really cool things. I wasn't happy at that job anymore. Right. I had to make a switch. I took a severe pay cut for several years while we got this company started. In retrospect, it's funny when you talk about it and say some of the things out loud that I actually did. It was kind of almost stupid on paper to make the decision that I did. But I knew that money was a tool, and I had to take a step back in order to take a number of steps forward. And because we did that, not just myself, obviously you, and
all
the
of
rest of our partners, because we took those steps back to take a giant leap forward, now we're able to employ a number of other people. We've been able to help hundreds of families, with their financial planning needs. And we've been able to do all kinds of cool things because we kind of took some risks with our money. It's the same thing with any kind of business that you start. Money is capital. Money is a tool in order to achieve the dreams that you want to achieve. And if you guard it so secretively, so carefully, and you're afraid to lose it, then you're also never going to enjoy the rewards that money can present to you by employing some of that capital in a constructive way.
Before we kind of move on and start talking about finding ways to use this tool, there's another one that I want to address that we hear this one all the time. I have heard it from my family. I've heard it from my wife's family. You probably have too. Is this concern, and this is based on, I believe this is in Proverbs, but that you should leave an inheritance behind for your children and grandchildren. And I've talked to many people, I'm sure you have as well, that they are obsessed with making as much money as they can so that they can leave it behind. And that sounds noble. I've got a problem with that.
I very much disagree with that.
And here's what I mean by that.
Not that you shouldn't leave anything.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to leave money behind. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the focus of leaving it behind. We were teasing my mother-in-law. I was over the holidays, and she was talking about a trip that she was going on. We were excited. She's going to do something really cool. And as we get closer, she's actually really starting to look forward to it, even though she was almost drug into it by some girlfriends of hers. She said, well, I'm just telling you, I'm spending your inheritance. And I looked her straight in the face and said, we don't want your money. We want you to enjoy it. Yeah. We want you to do the things that make you happy. we'll deal with whatever, when you're gone, we'll deal with whatever's left. That's not the concern. The concern is we want you to enjoy it. But I know she's got that mindset, and it's that we call them the silent generation, those people that were in between the greatest and the baby boomers. They were taught you got to leave money behind. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily the inheritance that we're talking about here. And I try to preach this. I don't know how effective I am at getting it through to some people's head. When my parents are all gone, right? My in-laws, my personal parents, when they're all gone, they're still here because I learned things from them intentionally, right? They taught me things that benefit me. My kids, when I'm gone, will still have things that they've learned that they do, habits, techniques, lessons. That's an inheritance, right? They're benefiting from you teaching them, from you raising them properly, from you mentoring them when they get older. So an inheritance does not exclusively mean money or assets. Mm-hmm. It can be any number of things that they benefit from. So please, please, please don't get hung up on leaving money behind to your kids. Mm-hmm. And what I've personally seen, and I'll bet you have too, the people who really obsess about leaving money behind, when they're gone, that money usually goes away very quickly because the people who inherit it typically don't have the discipline to take care of it to make it last. They tend to treat it like a windfall and just go spend it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you talked about an inheritance. There's ways to pass down good attitudes about money and bad attitudes about money as well. So if you have someone who, once again, is guarding that money, they're treating money as an idol, even though they might have a lot of it, they probably pass that same mindset down to their kids.
Yep.
Or on the flip side, there's also the other extreme where they were so guarded about their money that they'd never let anyone know how much that they had. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so now their kids, and you see this a lot too, where the kids have no idea how much the parents are worth, and then they receive, to your point, they have this amount of money that they don't know what to do with because they were never instructed on how to use money, right? Yep. They don't know how to use and how to properly, invest as capital money that they inherit. And so it's just interesting how, all the money that you spent all this time guarding is now gone very, very quickly.
You cannot take it with you.
At some point or another, that money is going to get spent.
Yep, that's right.
You made that money. At some point, that money will get spent. Whether it's you, whether it's your kids, whether it's your grandkids, somebody is going to spend that money. It can very much just as easily be spent on things that you don't agree with, that you don't value when you're not around, because you're not going to be around to stop it from being spent that way. Which, of course, now we're probably talking about getting into estate planning and trusts and wills and all that stuff,
which we've talked about many times, and we will again. It's important.
But that's why it's important, right? But this goes back to, and of course, every one of these podcasts always comes back to the importance of planning, right? Mm-hmm. Because this is why it's so important to plan specifically, purposefully, I should say, to purposely plan for your retirement. Because you need to have a plan in place to help you enjoy, to go do life, to go do life on purpose. That's our tagline. Yeah. That's our new tagline. You'll see a lot of that in our branding coming up, and we'll do a podcast episode directed around that specifically. But the idea is you need to go do yourself. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Take care of your loved ones. But do the things that you enjoy while you have the opportunity to do them, okay? And if, you certainly leave money behind and take care of your loved ones as well. But if you do that on purpose and if you do it with a plan, you will leave money behind. You can do both. There's a way to do both, as long as you're just not acting recklessly one way or the other. Because you can recklessly hoard all the money that you have and never enjoy life. Or you can also go recklessly spend it all, right? And maybe you have fun in the moment, but then it comes to a point where all that money's gone. So either way is reckless. But if you thoughtfully and purposefully plan on how you want to spend your money and how you want to dispose of your assets, you can have both.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can achieve both goals at the same time.
So, I think that's a good transition when we start talking about planning. I think too many people fail to be specific in those financial goals. They say, well, I want to have enough money to basically maintain after I retire. Okay, well, that's a starting point, but that's not a goal, right? That's how you kind of start into the planning. But what does your life look like, the way you want it to look like? Okay, specifically retirement, but it can be pre-retirement as well. You know, when we ask questions like that, all too often you get that deer in the headlights look, and then the next thing you get is, well, I want to travel. Great. That's the default position that I hear is I want to travel. Where?
I don't know.
Well, Gatlinburg, Branson, and that's fine if that's what you want, right? Try to start wrapping your head around more specifics. Yeah. Well, okay, I want to travel internationally. Can we narrow it down a little bit? The world's a big place. I mean, that's a start. I was asking that question with a client some time ago, and they were having trouble. They knew they wanted to travel, and they also knew that they were more interested in traveling inside the United States. Okay, great. What do you got in mind? Well, it took him a minute, but he said, you know what? And if he's listening, John, you know who you are. He enjoys turkey hunting. Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. He said, you know, I would like to go turkey hunting in all 50 states. Okay, that's specific, right? And I mean, my first comment was, they have turkeys in all 50 states, and I showed just how ignorant I was of that. He said, yeah, and I said, John, they don't have turkeys in Hawaii, do you think it's? Yes. And he told me exactly where on the islands they were, and I'm like, okay, he's been looking into this. They also have turkeys in Alaska. Who knew, right? But now you're getting specific. That's something I want to do. And at one point in time, they had actually said, you know, we want to buy an RV, and we want to drive and spend time in each of the states that are connected by land, the lower 48. They ended up changing their plans, but that's a specific goal. Okay, now your money's serving a purpose. We didn't say that we have to get up to $1 million or $2 million or some other arbitrary number. They said, we want to buy an RV. We want to drive that RV to all 48 of the lower states and probably Alaska as well. And we want to hunt turkey in all those states as we do it. Okay, now we can figure out how much money it's going to cost to do that. Right now, the money is a tool instead of a goal. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of specifics that I think people need to get into when they start talking about planning. Instead of just, I want to travel, where? What does that look like? Wrap your head around it. What's the ideal? Let's start from that.
It's interesting too, because you talked about, well, instead of just leaving your money and letting it grow to some arbitrary number. We're beginning of the year, so we're kind of in review season, right? Yep. We have several review seasons throughout the year, but this is kind of our winter review season. And what's the first thing that we typically do? Well, we put a bow on the last year, right, and we plan for the new year. Mm-hmm. Well, we had a good year in the markets last year, after we had 2 years prior to that were good years in the market. So it's always interesting to me, the differences that you see in people's reaction to, oh, your accounts are up 15, 20%, and oh, your accounts are down 5%. When the accounts are down 5%, oh, you see the worry.
It's a lot more of a visceral reaction, right?
You see the worry. Yeah. You see the I don't want to say pain, but you say, oh, that people's ears perk up a little bit. But when you show them, yeah, your accounts are up 15, 20% over the last year. It was a great year in the markets. We did a great job investing. We achieved more than the goals that we set, that we set at the beginning of the year. Oh, okay.
You're absolutely right.
It's interesting. Like, okay, there's that momentary, oh, that's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my accounts are way up, and they see the number, but to them, it's a number on the screen. It's a number on a spreadsheet. It's a number on a statement. And that number on a statement is never going to be enough for most people. For the people that make money in idle, once that number, the arbitrary $1 million goal, once that number hits 1 million, okay, well, now it's got to be 1.5. Right. 1.5, I'll be happy. Then 2 million, then 2. It's never going to be enough. And whatever that arbitrary number gets up to, you're going to have that one moment of, oh, that's cool. And you're going to completely forget about it. You're going to walk out of our doors, and you're going to go do life. And you're going to focus on the things that are actually important to your life versus some arbitrary number on a spreadsheet that you care about a few times a year when you open your statements, right? And so that's why it's so important to focus on, okay, instead of focusing on that arbitrary number that at the end of the day doesn't mean much, how can we take that arbitrary number and make it bring joy, help it to bring joy into your life in whatever way that is going to happen, whether it's experiences, whether it's purchases, whether it's trips, whether it's gifts, whether it's charitable donations, whether it's church. I don't care. That's up to you to decide.
Right.
But our job is to help you take that arbitrary number that at the end of the day is nothing but a number on a piece of paper, and help it bring joy to you, to your life, and to your loved ones.
So something else that you kind of pointed out there a minute. All too often I ask people about these types of goals, and they can't answer the question because it's not something they've ever thought about. Americans are the most charitable people maybe ever.
Not even close.
We could do a lot better job with it, though.
Sure.
A lot of people I talk to say, well, we don't give that much. Okay, you should. And I'll tell you why you should. From a very self-centered point of view, look at the people who are charitable. Those are always the happiest people, right? And there's some science behind this. I'm probably going to use the wrong terminology here, so forgive me if I do. But when you go on Amazon and you look at a product that you hadn't even thought about buying 10 minutes ago, but you saw an ad and you went, ooh, that's cool. I'd like to have that. So you go on Amazon or whatever site you're using and you find it and you go, yeah, okay, I'm willing to spend X number of dollars on that product, and you order it. And the next thing you know, you're tracking it to see how close it is at arriving at your house. You didn't even know this existed an hour and a half ago, and now you're going, cool, I just got an email said it already shipped.
I'm gonna get it between 7 and 11 a.m. in the morning.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome, right? Okay. That, and this is where my terminology may be wrong, that dopamine hit that you get from that, right? It feels good. Anybody who doesn't like that hit is lying to themselves. The problem with that is it's temporary. It just doesn't last. That's what we call consumerism. I challenge anybody listening to this. Drive around a subdivision nowadays that has, in most of the houses, garages that face the street. I drove through, over the holidays, I drove through my old subdivision, which the design in that neighborhood is all the garages face the street. I drove through my old subdivision just to see what it looked like. We were in the area. I was shocked at the number of vehicles that were parked on the driveway, not in the garage, right? And I know why, because I saw inside a few of them. It was that time of day.
Junk in there. Yeah.
Their garages are full of crap, right? Because we feel this need to buy. Why? Because that dopamine hit, because it feels good. The sheer volume, I'm always amazed at the number of storage unit places that I see driving around. They're popping up everywhere. There's a place that I typically go late on Friday afternoons. There's one popping up out in that direction, out in the east end of Louisville. And it's a big one, multiple story type thing. It's because people are obsessed with buying stuff, and then they don't want to get rid of it. Why? Because they got a dopamine hit when they bought it, and they don't want to lose that. Well, you're getting rid of that stuff is not going to hurt you at all. But what I find interesting, and this is the science behind it, when you give something, and this can be your time, it can be your riches, it can be any number of things, but you take something that belongs to you and you give it to somebody who is in more need than you are, you get the same dopamine hit, but it lasts longer because it's emotionally satisfying. And that is the reason why people who are charitable tend to be much, much happier people. And the people who are, and I lost my train of thought a little bit on that. People who are charitable tend to be wealthier people, not because they were wealthy in the first place and that's why they could afford to give it away, but because they're not spending money at the level that the person who is not charitable does. If you give money away, within reason, we're not talking about getting rid of everything.
Sure.
If you give money or resources away, you will find that you have more resources. It's amazing how that works, but there is a science behind it. And that's something that if you are listening or watching this and you are not regularly charitable in some way, you are missing out on a happiness and a wealth that can only be replicated through charity.
It's an abundance mindset,
Yep.
right?
There's a great story that I heard. John Rockefeller, arguably the richest person of all time if you index his wealth to today's standards. Everybody knew this was the richest guy in the world at the time. He was famous. And he was asked multiple times, how much more money do you need to make? And he would always say, just a little bit more, which is that problem. Just when you're trying to accumulate, you'll never get to the goal if the goal is just more. Later in his life, he became quite charitable, and he was asked, how much more are you going to give away? Just a little bit more. I guarantee you, I would bet everything on this. He was much happier during that second phase than he was during that first one, because he had somewhere along the way found a motivation, a reason, whatever, and he was using the resources that he had to benefit other people. I guarantee you that he was very pleased with that. It brought him joy. And oh, by the way, he still had plenty. It's not like he gave away everything that he had. That's just not necessary. So that's something that I think people should automatically put into their plan, is some form of charity. And if you don't have any money, go do. There's too many charities out there that need volunteers more than they need money.
Time, talent, treasure.
That's exactly right.
It doesn't all have to be treasure.
So
a lot of people have time. A lot of people have talents.
I'm going to get off my soapbox and let's talk about bourbon a little bit.
It's not going to be a long discussion because this is
well,
good.
you've already poured a second, so I knew right there that we'd done pretty well.
I can guarantee you, if I find this for $50 on a shelf somewhere, it's coming home with me.
Buy it, right?
This is unbelievably good. I've never had this one before. It's what's interesting about it is it's sweet, but most sweeter bourbons, most wheated bourbons go down and they don't have much of a, I don't want to say bite, but much of an aftertaste.
Right.
This hugs you a little bit.
Yes. I was going to make that comment. This is probably more burn, for lack of a better word, than any bourbon that I can think of that's this low proof, right? This is that proof point where usually, to me, the bourbon loses some flavor because it doesn't have enough alcohol to bring all those flavors out. This has got flavor for days.
Yeah.
Right. It's that concept of you have a beginning, a middle, and a finish on the flavors, and sometimes those are all uniquely different. Some bourbons don't have a finish, or they don't have a beginning. This one has all of the above, and I don't mean to be snobbish when I say this, but this tastes like warm, buttery bread to me. You know what I mean? That's what it tastes like. There's a lot of butter flavor in it. There's a lot of that yeasty bread flavor in there. If you told me I could only have one bourbon for the rest of my life, I was never allowed to get another one, and this was one of the choices that I could pick from, it'd be hard to top. It really would. It's just one of those. Yeah. It's a all-around good bourbon if you can find it at a reasonable price.
This is delicious.
Yeah. This is fantastic. Honestly, I think this is my favorite of the 1792s, and I've never had a 1792 I didn't like.
Well, this instantly became my favorite 1792. 1792 alone used to be one of my. So when Eagle Rare, because Eagle Rare, I always used to have a bottle of Eagle Rare in my house.
We've talked about that. Sure.
Yeah, back when I was, right out of college and poor, and no one knew what
back
Eagle
then
Rare
it was $25, $27.
It's like, okay, I like bourbon. Eagle Rare is a fantastic bourbon under $25. I always had Eagle Rare in my house. Good luck finding that now, because everyone else found out what I already knew 20 years ago, right? So 1792, after Eagle Rare became harder and harder to find, 1792 kind of became one of my go-to cheap, quote-unquote, cheap bourbons that I usually always had on standby, just for, when people come over, or if I'm making a mixed drink, or, you can drink it straight. I always like 1792. That and Jefferson's were kind of my two go-to cheap bourbons, if you will. Foolproof. We talked about Foolproof before. 1792 Foolproof.
It's out of this world.
Is wonderful. This is better.
I agree.
This is really cool.
Really good. The Foolproof, you're starting to see that one pop up. If you go to the big box liquor store, you see that one pop up as barrel picks a lot. It's becoming very easy to find. And I'm one of those that there's certain things I'll only buy it if it's a barrel pick. Every time I see that one, I go, "Ooh, I should pick that one up." And then I remember, I have more of that than I will drink in my lifetime. Speaking of inheritance, my kids are going to get some of that, right? The
You want to write me into your will?
The sweet wheat beats the foolproof hands down, and that's saying something because the foolproof is excellent.
I mean, I knew before I even took a sip.
The nose on this is fantastic.
When I nosed it, right, if I want to sound pretentious, but yeah, when I sniffed it, just you could just smell it immediately. I knew that it was going to go down really smooth.
Well, something that we haven't really talked about too much. If you notice, bourbon has what we call legs. Most spirits do. So when you finish a pour of it, if you look at the glass, you'll see it, kind of sticking and where it's running down. Those are called legs. What that is that's the oils and the tannins that are in it kind of sticking to the glass. This one has a lot, and that's usually a very good sign for just how good a bourbon is, right? It's got a lot of those oils because that's where your flavors are. I am very tempted to say, you know what? First of all, the small batch 1792 is readily available. You can find that anywhere. If you're trying to create a bar that looks cool, the 1792 small batch 1 liter bottle is really neat because it doesn't look like this one. It's tall and narrow, but it still has those curved edges, and it's a cool looking talking piece. The small batch is fantastic. So I don't want to put that one down, but the sweet wheat, the other ones that you're going to find out there that are not special releases is the sweet wheat. They have a 12-year. Now they call it aged 12 years. So it's a little bit pretentious. It's out of this world, right? It's very complex, lots of stuff going on there. And then the foolproof, those are the ones that are actually out there. This one absolutely is the best.
This one instantly became a top 5.
I may do this one and the 12-year side by side just to see, but I'm fairly comfortable this one will be better. It's not as complex as the 12-year, I don't think.
Yeah.
But the flavors are all so good. And to your point, it's got that alcohol burn, the pleasant part of it that I would expect to get at a higher proof rate.
It's not terribly strong.
No.
But there's enough of it to where, okay, this is a bourbon. And but it's still smooth.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Unbelievable. Dangerous.
Dangerous.
Dangerously smooth, I should add.
I did, when it got a little bit low in the glass, I put 1 drop of water in it just to check, even though I was pretty sure I didn't need it. It did bring out a little bit more of that butter flavor, but I lost the intensity of some of the other ones. I would prefer this without, but wow, what a fantastic bottle if you can find this.
Yeah, this was definitely something I'll start to keep an eye out for. Not that I've ever seen it.
Speaking of the things that bring us joy, having a bottle of 1792 sweet wheat, spend a few bucks if you can find it, and put this one at home because this one will bring me joy.
This is a good one, so good fun. Well, with that, sounds like a pretty good place to wrap up. So thank you for joining us here for another edition of the Retirement Planning Happy Hour. If you have you have any questions or anything that we talked about today speaks to you specifically, we would love to have you give us a call. Look in the show notes, and you can find all of our contact information, or go to our website, and you can schedule a call directly from there. Thank you very much for joining us, and until next time, we'll see you.